Hello, hello. We are back. So I just need to tidy my table a little as I get prepared. There's a couple of things on my table that are just going to get in the way. So we are back today. It is Friday. Now this may not be the longest stream in living history, because I'm tired today. But I have the next 4 days off, so I intend to do stuff. Now, for those who know me, of course. Hello, hello. If anyone who knows me knows that I am not going to be doing sensible things like cleaning and washing and all the things that any self-respecting adult should probably be doing. No, I'm going to be doing as little as humanly possible. But I will sit in the garden and play with the dog and, actually enjoy some of this so-called sunshine that we're having. I see it out the window. Last week was far too hot for that crap, but there is sunshine and I'm not in it, and I could be in it if I wasn't doing this. So, well, I will do some streaming, but I definitely will also not gonna do the full hog. I am gonna do a shorter variety so that I may enjoy some of these sunshine moments. I mean, to be fair, tomorrow I don't normally stream till quite late, so that I give other people a chance to come. Sunday I normally do a this kind of time, but on Monday I normally do a 5 o'clock-ish one. Well, I'll have Monday and Tuesday daytime to go out and do things, so I may also get sidetracked and not realise the time. So with all of that in mind, a little bit of mayhem may occur. So, just deciding what bit I should look to start with, really. So, let's have a look. As we left it yesterday, we'd introduced around about half the bobbins that we require. The patch that I cleaned has turned out alright, but of course it's realised that this darker patch, which of course I had spotted, which I assumed is my hands, may also be some of the colour rubbing off from some of the bobbins. So it is something I may have to pay. Oops. Let me move the microphone just a little bit because, well, I bashed you then. Didn't mean to. I may have to put another coat of varnish on these bobbins. So, which isn't a bad thing, no biggie. I'm not gonna hate on them for that. Part of the reason we're doing these tests, after all, is that we don't want it to happen on the real thing. We don't want to get to the bottom of the real thing and realise as we get to the bottom of the strip that it's kind of turned to soot. So, but there is one of the bobbins, there is kind of a grey, terribly grey mark on it. So, from that perspective, at least one of the bobbins definitely needs another coat. So likely they all do. But it doesn't take long to do it, especially on a warm day. It dries pretty quick, so especially as these have had considerable time to dry. So it's not like it's trying to dry 2 layers of varnish. And they were infinitely thin layers of varnish for that, to be honest. It was a mere brush with varnish. It was a bit like, if you think of school dinners, I mean, I don't know what school dinners like are where you are truly, but our kind of school dinners, any kind of flavour, it was kind of like, if the bobbins had the flavour and this was going to be your dinner, it'd be kind of like, and that was it. That was the nearest you got to the flavour, and basically everything all tasted the same. So, it's certainly was like that with my mother as well. So, from that perspective again, it's the, there was a slight brush with the whole kind of varnish. I got one of those little like makeup sponges, dipped it in there and put the thinnest layer that I could spread on it. Obviously thin layers are good. They are good because obviously you don't want to drown it. Well, this was something that I found very confusing as a child, so I am the wrong person to answer that. It depends where you are in Britain. However, The ladies who keep an eye on you in school at your lunchtime are called dinner ladies. And this just melted my poor little autistic brain cell, because dinner was something I thought happened at about 6 to 7 o'clock at night. But we had dinner ladies. Now, is it dinner if it's cooked? Or is it dinner if you're in a certain part of the country? Well, to an extent you did. But we gave it a good head start over here. Do not get me wrong. I mean, to be fair, you did bugger around with it quite a bit. But, dinner ladies never sat with me. It confused the heck out of me, because, well, it's lunchtime, but they're dinner ladies, but dinner's at 6 o'clock, but they're dinner ladies. And so, as a child, I never truly worked out. Now, tea is high tea is around 3:30, 4 o'clock. High tea is generally when you have a cup of tea and a little kind of fairy cake thing. Not that most people have high tea, but, you know, that is tea. High tea. So what is normal tea? Is tea before or after? You know? Exactly. Well, actually, what was quite interesting is how the text-to-speech read that. So it said, how do you read read? Do you read as read or read? So it knew that there could be a difference. But yeah, I think, I mean, you have to feel really sorry. You have to feel sorry for foreigners. I mean, if you take German, for example, yeah, pretty much I can imagine. It's like the sentence where you can have about 12 ands in a go, you know. There are an awful lot of times when the English language is just fucking stupid. And now, to be fair, it mostly isn't actually ours. We borrowed bits from, 20 different places and mashed it together. So there are times when it makes sense that it kind of doesn't make sense. But at the same time, one of the things that I find really, really funny. Now, given that you're American, my dear friend, what the fuck is wrong with the word fortnight? You see, if someone says to me weekly, we all know that's once a week. But if someone says to me bi-weekly, I would expect that to be every 2 weeks. Fortnight is 2 weeks. But I've also seen times when bi-weekly is used as twice a week. We didn't start that crap. We didn't start that one. It came up because something we do patching once a month, and we're being asked to convert to every 2 weeks. And my manager used the word bi-weekly. Well, my manager used the phrase bi-weekly. And I'm like, you didn't mean that. And he's right, he didn't mean that. He did mean, in essence, fortnightly. But this is where we all, it's a bit like acronyms. In the acronyms are great. This is why in a legal document, for all of us who've bothered to read some, because generally we kind of don't, at the very beginning of your legal document, as you work through it, it will kind of say, Joe Bloggs, hereafter known as the condemned, right? And then you establish that this little word afterwards will be used to repeat this section of text. that's quite probable. And let's face it, the phrase every other week would do. Right? You know. But it just always is one of those things, is that the thing that where I was going with that is that one of the things that I've noticed is the number of languages that implement things like weekend. And you'll be listening to a language that you understand literally none of. Blah, 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 weekend. I heard weekend in that, right? And depending on what it's about, there are more of them. And sometimes it's kind of surprising because you're kind of going, yeah, how come you don't have words for this? Surely you would have words for this. Or an expression or something. Why do you need, like, to use the English word for it when surely your language is kind of older and better than ours? You'd have got your own by now. So yeah, so how you doing, my friend? How is the world treating you? Yeah, it is kind of weird sometimes. I mean, I don't speak Welsh, but obviously I'm near the Welsh border, and so it's not uncommon. Yeah, you and I both suffer some of that. I know that feeling well. I do know that feeling well. I know that feeling well. I relate to that feeling. Fair enough. I don't know what it is about my phone, but I've noticed that with my phone recently that I always used to be fairly good at typing on my phone. These days, I swear, even if I'm looking at the buttons as I click them, it's not what comes out. It's quite disturbing. You know, when you type the word tidy and it's got S and Q in it, and you're like, how did they get in there? Okay. I've just got a standard kind of few-year-old iPhone. As much as I'm not an Apple fanboy. Yeah, I know that feeling. I'm not an Apple fanboy, but there is, with an Android phone, don't get me wrong, I like the fact that you can do pretty much whatever you like with it. And for the most part, I'd normally be all for that. But there is something about an iPhone where if it screws up, you absolutely will get help from Apple. So on one occasion, it bricked my phone. One of the updates just sat there with a thumb up its butt, kind of half, sort of showing the thing, but it'd been doing it for like 8 hours. There's no way it was still doing it. And the dude logged into Apple from my PC, something obviously I don't normally do. Logged in, explained that my phone was doing this, and he said, right, do this, do this, do this. Yeah. Right, what does it say? I said, still doing it. Right, he said, do this, do this, do this. Okay, it's moving, doing something now. He got it working for me. You don't really have that with Android. So yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it pains me to have Apple products. I'm not an Apple fan, but I do like the general overwhelming reliability that you get with the iPhone. I would say it's a bit like my dad driving a Mercedes, right? My dad drove a Mercedes and he swore on his life that they were the greatest things on earth, and that, if he put my favourite car in a Mercedes in the driveway, I'd take the Mercedes. And I turned around without missing a heartbeat and went, yes, I could flog it, buy the car of my dreams, and run it for about 10 years, right? They are not cheap, they are overpriced, but they are well made. Now, one of the things that is kind of relevant to that story is that the car of my dreams is very cheap, okay? But when it came to someone had driven in the side of my car, because I had the model of the car of my dreams, but not the right colour, just go with it, right? The cost of replacing one driver's door on my car, that was probably worth about £1,000 at the time, was 3 times as much as the cost of replacing the driver's door on my dad's Mercedes. Now, my car had zero electronics other than like the starter motor. His car was fully electric, auto lock and aircon and the whole shebang. All of it, down, all electric windows. Mine had the old crank handle, his was cheaper than that. My to replace the door on my car was like half the value of the car. To replace the door on his, including spraying it to be the right colour and all the shenanigans that goes with it, was about 150 quid. And it was kind of like, how? How can it be so much cheaper on a Mercedes when the original Mercedes is kind of house money, right? Fair enough. But, Mercedes are not cheap things, as I say. They're kind of house money. You pay, the lowest one, you can buy houses around here for that. I dropped a pin. Oh, there it is. You can buy houses for that kind of money. So, in fact, not far from here, you can buy a couple of houses for that money. You wouldn't want to live in them, but you can buy a couple of houses for that money. It's not a great area, but no one said it was. No one said they were good houses. The houses aren't bad, it's just the area they're in. So it is one of those things, is that but when you can buy 2 houses for the price of a Mercedes, right, you'd expect that replacing a broken door, so someone's driven into it or, whatever, rammed it with a trolley. Well, that's kind of what, round here, in England, for the most part, every major area has a shit bit, right? And there always is a shit bit. I think it kind of, it's not too surprising. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not, because, for there to be a good bit, well, that kind of does suggest there has to be a bad bit. And no, but you know, there's two near here, so there's one there because there's two major. Well, actually, there's three. So for the three major areas that are near where I live, without naming them and outing where I live, each of them has a shit bit. My ex-husband happens to live in one of the shit bits. Right. But it is funny how everybody is so prim and proper. If you live the other side of the road to the shit bit, you don't live in that place. You live somewhere else. And you're like, you know, what, do they only shoot on one side of the road here? I mean, we've got places that shooting is normal. They don't tend to hit many people. It does, but you imagine... Yeah, but they don't tend to hit each other. That's the amusing part. I don't know quite how this works out, but shooting is not uncommon, just no one hits anybody. Some of the poorer areas, yeah, things are done at gunpoint. Things, you know, they just don't tend to hit anybody. We have had shootings. We've had, you know, we've had, you know, but we don't have anything like the shootings you do, just because officially people don't have guns. Now, as we all know, unofficially you can have kind of what you like. Well, it's kind of weird because I think to an extent the no gun thing is kind of sensible. Well, and that's kind of also the problem, is that if you really, really want something, there are ways and means that will be found for people to have it. You know, let's face it, we all think of the obvious, Class A drugs. We all know that, frankly, there isn't pretty much anywhere in the Western world where it's legal. But half the celebrities have done them. Well, they got them from somewhere, you know. And there is this kind of aspect to it that if people really, really want something, people will find a way. And as you've said, well, it's not iffy because an awful lot of people don't have them, and arguably we don't need them. It is only generally those who are going to do wrong that need them. Otherwise they can't, because they're too pansy to do it without the guns. So, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong. Every year, for the last number of years, it is a fairly new thing, but for the last number of years, I have had to do gun... Well, we will in a sec, but one of the things that is quite, will amuse you, obviously, with the gun laws that we have here, is that every year we've had to do a course on what happens if someone brings a gun into work. Not hopefully too common, but we still have to do training. So yeah, find lighter things to talk about. What can we talk about? Happy 4th of July for your independence from our great nation. Well done on, you know, the selection of people you have chosen to lead your way. Yeah, well, you know, congratulations on picking such great, glorious people to lead your country. You have made such wise choices with your independence. That is very much tongue-in-cheek, do not get me wrong. do look after all the little animals because they don't understand you. Well, that's always the problem. And this is where so many of the statements that people make fall down, is that, like you said, like you said about, laws only really affect the lawful. The problem with so many of these statements of, we hate the insert whatever you like, frankly, is that there is both good and bad in all of them. And it is usually, I say usually, not always, but usually, it is a minority of the people who make it bad for everybody else. I mean, let's face it, half the laws that are in place are because of a couple of morons. It is not because primarily, I mean, normally they relied on logic for you not to do the dumb stuff, but apparently you needed it written down because apparently, this was not blatantly obvious. And, there are times when you kind of sit there going, who made them write that down? But when you've got to have rules that says do not take stuff that's not yours, and, don't remove people from the population, that's not not your job, it is one of those kind of bits that there is a lot of you that kind of goes, yeah, and we let these people breed. But never mind. It is one of those things. Well, that's fine. I understand. Having been one of the worst people for grammar, because frankly I was never taught it, because I'm too busy trying to make sure I didn't put capital letters in the middle of my words, because of course my dyslexia was not diagnosed. They had other things on their mind, so I didn't learn that bit, so I won't worry. As long as it's got words in roughly the right order, I'll work it out. Now, one of the things that I find odd, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would argue our education system's gone downhill. And I know lots of people go, well, how can you say that? Well, because I've seen the questions, darling. Every year, when it comes to school exam time, somewhere on the news, there'll be and we've got some example papers. Yeah. But every year they do this kind of like, so here's some excerpts from, this year's maths questions. It's nearly always maths, by the way. And that's good, because I'm good at maths. And if I tell you that school children, age 16, taking their end of secondary school, so at the end of secondary school, well, originally in my day you could leave at year 5, so age of 16. Now you have to stay till 18, but let's move on from that. So at the end of secondary school, when you could first leave at 16, you had exams, and in these exams, we did. We had to get grades because they determined whether you could go to A-levels, what A-levels you could do. A-levels are done when you're 18. And what A-levels you got depended on which universities would take you. Some of these things could could potentially block you from a job if you were that shit at it. But, each year, the GCSEs, so the 16-year-old level school exams, get kind of honourable mentions in the news. And friends of mine, a couple of years ago, were doing their GCSEs, and I was around one of their houses as they were practising just before the mock exams. And they had some really simple questions. So there was like I'll draw it down on the pad. So you had it was this way around, but it had a line, a line, a line, and these were marked as right angles. Okay, and it gave you the height of this, the width of this, the height of this. Right. and it said, what is the distance between the top and bottom points? My friend needed help with that. Now, he's not a stupid boy. He's in the top level maths group. Darling, at top level maths groups, we were doing actual useful shit. This kind of stuff I did when I was in junior school. And I was a bit puzzled, but I helped him. Anyway. And I'd had cause for concern because a few years previous, another kid who was supposed to be in the top level of maths got a question of, if your washing machine costs £100 and you pay 20% tax, what's the final product? It's 120. Fuck you. He didn't know. And I was kind of like, okay. Seems a bit odd. Now, as I say, this 16-year-old child who's in the top level group for maths, in the back of his book, to practice following the exam, he was expected and told to do practice of his times tables. I did those age 7. What do you mean you're still having to learn them at the age of 16? It's hard to believe that you're not stupider. But when you listen to example questions, and it would be like, you know, Mary has £10. These things cost 3. How many may Mary buy? You really need help with that? Or we bugger off? No, I said 20% on 100, not 800. But even so, you know, you and I are not the ones sitting the exam, right? So even if you can't do it, that's fine. You know, you probably did it, you know, when you were at school a few years back, you know, and you know, if you can't do it today, does it really matter? No, right? But when you've been working every week, usually 3 times a week on this, and you know, the level of exam was things like, you know, if Mary's got £10, yay, yay, thank you. But yeah, I just found it's like, but this is shit I did when I was 7. What do you mean? This is what you're testing them on at 16. Surely we've moved on a little bit from this. You know, we're doing all the pointless shit now. All the shit that no one's ever going to use unless they actually need it for a job. In which case they'll be taught it as part of their job, you know? But no, they're still doing real fun, you know, almost like if a train travelling at, you know, so many miles an hour leaves this station and you know, a train at this point, how far down the track will train B be when it passes A, you know? And you're kind of going, really? These are simple things. Surely we're doing better than that. And the answer seems to be no, we're not. I had a friend who, good few years ago now, must be 10 plus, so we were still speaking at the time, who was, you know, doing GCSE English and stuff because she was about to do her GCSEs. She was asked to write a poem on Napoleon, but that the first letter of every line had to spell out something, anything, to do with Napoleon. So you could have done like a 3-line haiku and started it with the word I, or you know, arm or something, right? Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, my ex-husband's with you on that. He counts. My ex-husband doesn't even use his fingers to count, which I still occasionally do, because I carry numbers with my fingers and stuff. He uses dice faces, but not D10s like you'd think. 6-sided dice to add up in a 10-digit world, and then he wonders why he's confused. I totally understand why you're confused, because you're 4 digits short, sunshine. That's all right. I understand that one. You know, I lived with Trev for long enough. But it is. I occasionally write numbers down in the wrong order, and that's my dyslexia struggling to come out. Because I'm generally all right with numbers, but occasionally, if I'm writing 59, I write 9 first, and then have to put the 5 down. It's a minor detail. It's only occasional. I know, as long as I know what numbers I meant to write down and make it right, come out that way. It doesn't really matter the order you write them in. As long as there's space for everything, it'll work out okay. Right. So, let's put you away. Grab another stick, because we will need another stick shortly. Yes, being overweight in a game is difficult, and only at the weekend I did pretty much the same shit. I bought some shit. I was in a game and I bought lumps of meat. I was going to cook them, as you do, and I went to go and do something as a quick temporary, I need to go and put this in the bank or something, right? And I couldn't move, and I'm standing there going, what the fuck? Am I stuck on something? Because I was playing an ogre and they're a bit big after all. Is there someone I'm stuck on? Has my pet got in my way? If I encountered a bug? No, I was chronically overweight because apparently the small 20 lumps of rat meat that I bought weigh more than my physical being. So, I was chronically overweight to the point I couldn't move. And you're kind of going, you could have warned me when I was buying it. I mean, it's not like I got a message saying you are now encumbered. It just did you're not moving now. Why am I not moving now? And it actually didn't dawn on me for a long time that it was weight related. Because, if I can carry 15 two-handed swords, you'd think 20 bits of rat meat would be alright. I mean, they're not even like killer man-eating vampire rats. They're just rats, That was the weekend playing Monsters and Memories, which we've got playtest at the end of the month, by the way. In case you missed it. They got a 5-day playtest at the end of the month. But yeah, that one caught me out. I'm standing there kind of going, do I need to petition? Is there something wrong? Do I need to get, call big boys for help here? I mean, what is going on with this? And I'm fat. Oh, that's what it is. I'm carrying too much shit. So I won't be making 20 rats on a spit then. I think that's one of the funny things I find funny in a lot of games. If you're a little tiny gnome, right? You're like this big. Why is it that you can carry, like 10 two-handed swords that you can hand to me and will be bigger, like 5 times your size? Technically they were butchered already because you get rat meat, not rat bodies. You can chop them up into chunks and then mince them. I haven't found any reasons to chop them up yet, but you can chop them up. But if I tell you, I think they weigh the same as, say, they weigh the same as bats, and they weigh the same as jackals. You get my point. It's kind of like, how big are these fucking rats? Because the rats on screen are not that big, you know. What are they, extra dense rats or something, you know? Do they show up in the local, you know, Food R Us as... I think it does for now. I think, you know, as it gets a bit further along, someone will rightly point out that it seems a bit stupid that, you know, quarter of a bat, it weighs the same as quarter of, you know, a gigantic beetle or something, right? Or whatever it is. You know, that not all of these things should be weighing the same. It's alright, I'm making a fucking pig's ear of this. Problem I have is when you're trying to... So, Naughty Celt, bless him, I love Naughty Celt, helps me come up with an easier way to do this knot. But the problem is that thread is too bendy and crappy. So you have to try and put that loop through that loop and then the tail through it. And but the thread tends to have some life to it. And I try not to lick too much of my work because, well, you know, it's a bit gross. And it should be unnecessary. Now I could use beeswax on it, but the beeswax takes quite a bit of effort to get some beeswax on it because it's thin thread, and I do have some. It's around here somewhere. There it is. Look. Hang on. See, here it is. And if I get one of my... I need to find a fairly curly one. It's not going to be one of you. I need to find a curly one. You'll be curly, right? If I undo this, it's kind of curly. So to straighten it, you have to kind of pull it along, and it's still kind of curly. So you then pull it along again, and again. There it goes. It's a bit straighter now, and that I can probably tie a knot with. We should find another curly one. Well, it's not going to be as curly, but if I do this, I have some curl to it there in the middle. If I literally lick my fingers and do that, it's almost instantly straight. So it's easier just to lick because, well, you know, fingers and all that. So yeah, there is some thread stuff which is basically quite a soft beeswaxy thing, but this cost me next to nothing, and this is proper beeswax, and this is the kind of stuff you put on leather and all the rest of it. Speaking of leather, I have a glorious thing, but the soft stuff's like 20 times the cost, and you get like this tiny little pot of it, and you're like, it's not gonna last for long. So speaking of leather, I got this in the post today, which is an A0 sized piece of leather. Now previously I bought and it's what's more surprising is that it's actually kind of rectangular, actually kind of A0 sized. Previously, I've bought a couple of random pieces, she says, looking around and not seeing where she's put them. They weren't that far away. Anyway, oh, there's one. But they're not straight. They kind of like, they guaranteed you that it would be at least that big. So it might be a real wiggity shape, but if you said A5, there would be enough for a chunk of A5. But almost guaranteed to be not really any bigger. So some of the smaller ones, because I kind of wanted like a strip for putting bobbins on, because again that would help with some of this discoloration-y shit. Plus of course it makes it sound quite nice when the bobbins land on it, and it is quite a common thing to do. But all of them came in slightly wonky shapes. None of them were like, we will send you an A5 piece, here is exactly an A5 piece, which you think they might. No, they just send you a bit that's got something that would fit an A5 piece on it. And don't get me wrong, not bad stuff. But this is basically the offcuts brand. You know, this is a bunch of offcuts. This is the leftovers. But this is really good. And it smells so nice. sorry, vegans, but it smells so nice. And you know, I do appreciate the vegan world and the cruelty of animal, but if we're going to eat it, at least we should do the best by making use of all the parts, is my view. And as I will be having meat for dinner later, I have no shame in having leather in the house because, well, at least that way we're making use of it. It's better than chucking it in the bin. And I've always felt a bit like that about, you know, sort of like killing animals for eating. I have no problem with killing animals for eating as long as you're going to use it all. Or at least as much as you humanly can, right? I don't expect you to eat eyeballs and brains too much, but, you know, or poop. But, you know, or toenail clippings, etc. But, you know, you can boil the bones to make a broth or boil the bones to make a glue. You can use the fur or the hide for things. If you do that, it's not really an abomination because at least you have the decency to make the most of it. It's the thing I have problems with people like poachers who kill the animal to chop a horn off and go, look, really? You could have done that while it was alive. You could have sedated it and done that. Exactly. You know, if you make use of things, I don't consider it truly much of an abomination. Now, I do understand that people are against it, and I respect their choices. But at the same time, my choice is that as long as you know, if for example, you know, they wanted to make human wigs, they don't go around killing the humans to get it, right? And it's that kind of principle. I mean, there's a few they could volunteer on, but it is that kind of principle. It is if as an animal you do it the decency of kind of thanking it for its life by you know, it's a bit like being an organ donor. If you donate all the bits that you're not going to need to help someone else, you see, as long as they do that, it's, I mean, kind of a fair trade-off, right? In that someone somewhere will be thankful for the death of that animal, for it has fed them, clothed them, you know, held shit together, whatever, right? It's when they do it, and, you know, it's one of the reasons fishermen are alright, is because they catch it, pop it in a net for a bit, which, okay, probably isn't the kindest thing. Often, it's certainly over here, they don't even keep it in a net. They kind of catch it, take a picture of it, and then throw it back. Those who keep them, eat them. Well, that's a good thing. Didn't know that. That's quite interesting. But I think that's the thing. If you have the respect by, you're not just killing it for shit and a giggle. You're gonna make use of all of the, you know, as many, if not all of the parts of it. Well, that's not so bad. I mean, for example, you catch trout, you decide to keep it, so you cook it and you eat it. Now, maybe you don't eat the fish heads because, you know, boiled fish heads is a little bit low on the average person's kind of consumption list. But if you eat the whole body, you have kind of done it justice. You have. But if you kind of cat and a mouse thing, if you kill it and then just kind of walk away, well, that's kind of just cruel, you know? And you see, that's it, is that, you know, it's like everything. I mean, we've got lots of fishing rules and stuff here because we have fishing season, so that the fish get to do their thing in spring with peace and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, over here, as you probably know, for a large amount, hunting is not generally the done thing, right? But, you know, it is. I think to me it's like organ donating. It is if the most is made from the demise of somebody, that is the best outcome. If you don't, well, that's a bit different, you know. If you just kill it because you're an arse, well, kind of, yeah. Let's not. I'm not so keen on that. But we humans have been doing it for a bloody long time now. So let's not be pretending that, you know, this is a new thing. You know, human beings have been hunting since the dawns of time. Og want new hide, and they go off, they kill it, they skin it, and they prance around in the new loincloth, right? It's not a new thing, and sorry, I can't count and talk. Well, not easily, anyway. It is not a new thing. I think the problem humanity has is we do have a habit of overdoing things. We do have a habit of going mad and depleting all of the animals in a certain area and then getting miffed because there aren't any left to kill and eat or wear or whatever it is. And you're kind of like, well, yeah. And as you say, that is, you know, if you had to sort your own food and you had to do your own thing, a lot of people would end up doing without. And overpopulation would be less of a problem. We do. We do. We have taken the whole kind of like Bill and Bowen go out for mammoth hunting, for food for the village. We've kind of taken that to an extreme, and we employ a company to go out mammoth hunting, and they raise the mammoths, they kill the mammoths for us, they stick it in a little plastic wrap, and then they sell it to us via another company who make their job transporting it and selling it, and then someone else makes a job of pre-prepping it, and someone else makes a job, and you know it's not necessarily wrong. Are there better ways? Probably. But at the same time, you know, as someone who holds down a 40-hour-a-week job, um, you know, I don't really want to starve Monday to Thursday because the only time I can afford to go hunting is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, you know, I'd need somewhere to store it, which is fine because, you know, inevitably I do buy my week's shopping at a time. But, you know, by the time I've caught it, prepped it, it's going to take some time. And, you know, it is far more convenient if I can pay some other bugger to do it for me, and come along and go, yeah, I'd like, you know, to buy off you in exchange for, you know, making you a woolly jumper. I'd like you know a couple of, I'd like a week's supply of mammoth, please, you know. Because you know it takes quite a while to make woolly jumper, so. Yeah, I mean, I wish mammoths were real. Um, yeah, to be honest, I really disagree with land ownership. Um, yeah, I quite like the idea of that. I hate the idea of land ownership because it implies land had someone owning it in the first place because you had to buy it off someone. Which, of course, we all know isn't true. You know, it's not like Elon Musk bought the Earth and is flogging it off in small chunks. You know, it truly is that. I mean, he probably could, but you know, back in the days of yore, you found a bit of land, it was empty. Well, no one owned it. Well, so how dare you then charge for chunks of it? It doesn't make a lot of sense, you know? Give me a freaking pin. So my pin pop was being awkward. Didn't want me to have a pin. I'm not saying it wasn't inevitable, but in some ways, I don't like the fact that someone can declare that your mud is better, is more expensive than my mud. It's just mud, dude. Like, well, we all know that, you know, if you've got a great view, people are more likely to want it. So to attain it, someone is more likely to be prepared to pay more because they really, really want it. So you can charge more, but it doesn't make it worth more. It means you got more. Now, Trev explains this very much better than I do because words are my enemy. In terms of what you earn. What you earn is what you're paid. It's not necessarily what you're worth, because you could be bullshit or you could be genius. You are paid what you are paid, no more, no less. And the same is true for your house price and the land price. In that, if Elon Musk came along and gave you 20 million for your patch of mud, I mean, you'd be a bit of a dick if you said no for 20 million. But it doesn't mean your mud's worth 20 million. It means he paid you 20 million to take your mud. Now, I think with houses, there is a little bit of a difference in there, in that a patch of mud with no house on it is clearly not immediately livable in. Therefore, it's got to be a pretty impressive patch of mud for you to pay 20 million for it. But if it's got a really beautiful house, all beautifully laid out in a very great and glorious way, and it's in immaculate condition with a perfect garden, yeah, and it is that is, I do agree that a house has a minimum price, which is obviously the cost of making it, right? So it is only fair that that house, if you know, to save you the grief of building it yourself, if someone has built on the land for you, and it is, you know, of your choosing, which is why you're buying it, then, you know, it is of value, and it, you know, that, again, a bit like the view, the house has a cost to it, which then has a value added to it, which is its wantability. So let's say, now not all houses cost the same amount to make. So let's say my current house cost 50,000 to make. But where it is might make it, I don't know, 70,000, because it's got £20,000 worth of, well, it's near a field, it's quite quiet, it's this. It's not near any schools. You don't really get any through traffic because it's no through road. All of that kind of stuff. Therefore, the wantability is worth £20,000 because it's quiet, it's nice, and all of that kind of stuff. And while there's water nearby, you don't get all the mosquitoes and midges, so quite nice. But it's only, it's almost like a tax on it, the wantability tax. Well, and that's what I mean, but that's again part of the, you have done something of a physical value. You had to buy things and do things to make it worth that. Now, obviously, not all money you put into it you would get back. So, for example, if I was to flog this house here and now, I would get so much for it. I could move all my shit out, have someone professionally decorate it, replace all the carpets, do all the windows up, make it absolutely spotless. But the amount I spent on it would not necessarily be reflected in the difference between flogging it as is and flogging it all done up. Now, there are occasions that is definitely not true. If it's looking real crappy, they're not going to want to pay you a reasonable price for it because they know they've got to do a lot of work on it. Whereas if you've built it up and it looks really immaculate and all the rest of it, it won't stop them from redecorating and stuff, but at least they can move into it should it be their cup of tea. But as you say, from a land perspective, if you buy kind of like a pile of builder's rubble, then most people are not going to be overly inclined to want that. And again, it's still kind of the want factor to an extent. But if you've made it beautiful, if you've, put minerals and nitrogens in the oil, you've planted lots of nice and pretty plants, they're all looking at their best and they're all kind of like, it's looking like something at Kew Gardens, then yeah, you have that ability to charge more because what you've put that in, and everyone who's got, just a builder's rubble pile, is going to count, people are more likely to want yours, therefore the want factor comes into it. If someone was going to knock it all down and build a house on it, they probably wouldn't care if you nitrogenised the soil and made it great for plants, because they're going to build a 10-storey flat on it. It's, a lot of these things are subjective. There's no point in it looking great and wonderful if that's not what they want it for. If they're going to build a freeway through it, they don't care how pretty your house is. In fact, they're probably more annoyed because they'll feel they have to give you more money for it when they just want the actual land and they don't care that there's building on it. So it does depend a little on what you want with it. One thing I was really pleased about on that note, actually, is that somewhere around here, I don't actually know where, I'd never heard of it, they showed a picture of like a kind of rectangle lump of grass and some buildings, and claimed that, and I need to point out, this lump of glass was not very big. When I mean not very big, I'm talking most houses probably have a yard of not much bigger than this, right? But they had this plot claiming that there would be 100, that the council of city had rejected the council's plan to put 177 houses on it, and you're looking at it going, it's about 3 houses worth maybe, and that's with small gardens. What do you mean you were going to try and put 177 in that? It was one of those kind of moments. But I'm glad in a way they turned it down, because they turned it down on the grounds of loss of the green factor, and you've all been doing too much of that, we require more green, thank you very much. So no. Yeah. I mean, over here they try and keep some level of I don't need a pin yet. Some level of greenery, for the goodness of the world, but it really isn't a lot. They will frankly build on anything, and whenever they do, it always seems to be but ugly, cheap houses that they don't really finish. so that the people moving into them really are on a loss before they start. Where I live, there has been far too much building recently. I mean, when I moved into my old house was kind of near the edge of the village that I lived in. If I could kind of magic you there so you didn't really know where you were, but I put you in it, you would believe you're slap bang in the middle. They have built so much now. But of course they haven't improved any of the roads. So of course all the roads are really busy. And then they get really surprised when people moan about the traffic. And it's kind of like, well, just down the road from me is the local rubbish dump, right? Now that sounds really hideous, but it's very rare that you can smell it. And when I mean like rare, I'm talking like once a year. I can't hear it. I don't hear anything from it. They're far enough away that I don't hear it. These bits of thread have been a bitch. And so, to all intents and purposes, sitting here right now, you wouldn't know, right? But almost the other side of the road from it, they've just built 250 houses. And it looks like they're trying to build some more. Well, for the time we do smell it, it's pretty pungent and it's like a mile away. What's it going to be like when you live next to it, almost in it, you know? I'm almost surprised they're allowed to from a biological standpoint. You would think that there could be significant risks that just mean you can't build that close to it. But apparently not. As I say, you'd like to think that, but... What time is it for you? Must be kind of mid-morning, right? Yeah. Pretty much slap bang mid-morning for me. Yeah, okay. I understand the sleep thing. Over the next 4 days, I don't. Fair enough. I mean, I did that over the last weekend, so my body clock's completely knackered this week. I think I slept 4 hours over the 3 days, so I'm not overly fit for the world this week. But that's why this weekend, I have no intention of being awake at 10 o'clock in the morning. I will not have arisen by that point. Not intentionally, anyway. If I do wake up, I'll wake up, but it will be because my body's done, not because I've set an alarm clock or I've deliberately, enabled the getting up out of bed. I will wake up when I wake up, and then I will contemplate getting out of bed when that happens. And if that's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, well, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. But I will do what I do and see how it turns out. So, this is what I tend to do with my holidays. It's very hard to explain because of course whenever you have time off work, they kind of go, "Oh, are you doing anything nice for your holidays?" "Yeah, not getting up." "Why?" "Oh, are you going anywhere?" "No, not really." So I usually end up lying and naming the game land that I'm playing in, and kind of like, sort of like in WoW days, I'm going to Azeroth. What? Where's that? Oh, you probably wouldn't know it. It's all right. It's a nice place. I'll be there for a while. I go there quite regularly, kind of deal. Yeah, I don't play WoW anymore. Kind of given up on Blizzard, to be honest. But yeah, so sleep well, my friend. Sleep well. So we're not doing too bad adding the bobbins again today to start strip number 2. I know I really should do the triangles. But mentally, because I haven't decided what the final strip will be, I don't really want to finish the curtain, the half curtain, before I'm ready to start the next one, because there are just too many questions going around my head. And at some point, I will need you all to vote. So I strongly recommend you join our Discord. Our Discord is not so much about chatter, although you are free to chatter. I'm not going to shoot anyone who wants to have a conversation. But it's more about the notification for being live here. But also, it will be a good place for me to post up the options and for you to all vote which ones you like. Because, well, we've got, she says, hand butt in the microphone yet again. So we've got a number of options from our original thing. I know you can't see the detail very well, that's why you need a dark thing. But there are a couple of options in here that were... That's fair enough. Tuesday's mine, so hence I'm not working on Tuesday. And I took Monday off because I was bugged if I was going to go to work on Monday and then take Tuesday off. So these are the options that we took from the last one. That's not really dark enough. I need a dark cloth. Hang on. Oh, hang on. This will do. This will do. This is my old mouse mat, so bear with it. It's got a bit of a kind of skanky little bit on it, but because it needs a wipe. But this will do because it's black. Hence, sorry about the skanky bit. So if I do this will make it easier to see. Now I can't control my camera easily via the Steam Deck because it's knackered, and they've now sent me a thing saying, "Can you make a new user and reinstall everything as that user and tell us if it works then?" And you're kind of like, well, I can, but it's still not going to fix me, is it? You know, because I don't really want to set all my other shit up onto another user. And to be honest, I don't really want to make another user and install shit on that. So, but let me grab my, let me get my camera app up, because that's a thing, and see if I can't now direct it a little bit better for you. There you go. And then I need to get up. No, that's that direction. So we have a number of options. And technically, oops, wrong direction. I always go in the wrong directions with these. So, we have a single rose ground, a 2x2, a 3x3, a 4x4 rose ground. We have honeycombs in a little border. I'm kind of drawn to this myself. Fuck it, I hated the thing that I'd drawn, so I cheated and did a lazy thing square, which I actually really like. Thing I'm calling the Eye of Sauron. And a little cathedral window. This is what they're called. That's not my word for it. That's these two are named by me. This is its official name. So I don't know. I kind of like these, but I think they could get a bit lost. I do really like this. It's not very big. I do like this. I also like this, because it's nice and light and airy, but it's not heavy like, you know, this is a normal cloth stitch look. This is basically cloth stitch, but without a lot of the work. It does, but it also kind of looks a bit like the Eye of Sauron, so that's what I went with. The only thing I don't like the Eye of Sauron is it starts and ends with a rose ground, and so it's got the little kind of, if you actually look at it, I mean, if I can properly zoom in, hang on, can I zoom in more than that? Hang on, let me see if I can zoom in more that. I know I'll need to move upwards, bear with me. You can just see, now it looks a bit like a little fishy. Got 2 eyeballs and a mouth. Yeah, now it looks more like a fishy with 2 eyes and a mouth. But of course it's going to be that way up, so... He is a bit of a squishy. If I do that, she's just trying to pull it in thing. Yeah, it doesn't look much like the Eye of Sauron or anything like that. Now it just looks a little b's weird. It looks a bit like a cat's eye, I guess, but... I do like this. This is my fave. I actually do like this quite a bit, even though it was my lazy filling in a gap bit. So, this is strip number 1. Strip number 2 is on the thing. Yeah, I mean, I haven't decided. I mean, let me quickly show you these, because, well, we've got the camera out on the black background. If I show these, so, let me unfold it a bit more. Hang on. I need the front page. So, this was the original. So it had the 2 kinds, and it was like big, smaller, big, right? This was the same big, smaller, but done slightly differently. So although they're literally the same markings on the thing, I messed around with how some of them worked. I like this one. Didn't really like the others. This wasn't so bad because I quite like the fact that this ended up with a bit more of a square look to it, but it kind of looks more like a low-flying aircraft. I actually quite like this, but it's a bit saggy, so I'm not sure how well that's practical that is. Didn't like that one at all. That's back to the normal. This I liked the idea, but it's too big and looks saggy, hence there's a smaller one coming up in the test. That's back to the original idea, and this was just fucking mistakes. So, some of the things didn't work out quite as well as they could have done. On paper, they had potential, and then when done, failed. Hence, we're doing some more tests here. So we've got rose ground 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got honeycombs, the lazy square. You see, I quite like the lazy square because it's really subtle. So I think if you had like a big thing, not necessarily that one, and then as a smaller thing in between this, it's nice and subtle, so it kind of fades in a little bit to the background, but it's still different and gives it, and will give the shadow a bit of a, that comes through it, a bit of a pattern. The Eye of Sauron I like, but I'm not sure I want a hole in it, because it's kind of like a buttonhole. I mean, you know, I could almost put my finger through it kind of thing. And then little cathedral square. So up next, we've got a bigger cathedral square. I know you can't see it, but hang on. I need to press magic buttons. Hang on. It's fun when you've got to use a different app to control the camera. We've got a medium cathedral size cathedral square. We've got a square in a square. We've got the oval things in a square. We've got what else we got? We've got rose grounds in a square. We've got the cathedral thing in a square, and then we've got that star thing that didn't really work because it was too big in a square, which is in this strip. And then we've got one more strip after that, which has a couple more bits on it. Which is, we have a huge cathedral thing, tallies in a square, God help me if I like that, and something very similar to that kind of saggy one that I had in a square, but obviously less because, well, there's less of it, so it's less likely to be saggy, because obviously you want the, you know, anything that makes a kind of cross, you want it to stay there. You don't really want it floating around and looking loose and skanky, so that's kind of where that's at, to be honest. So, I have ideas, and so the Discord thing will be where I post the opportunities. No, skanking loose isn't overly my thing. I mean, to give you an idea, if you look at this wrist, you can still see where I used to wear my wristwatch. I haven't worn a wristwatch in 5 years. That's how tight I used to wear my wristwatch, right? The autistic part of me, and again, it's kind of like, how did people not notice I was autistic? The autistic part of me could not handle loose things. It's the same with, it's part of the reason I don't like dresses and skirts, because they're loose. They just irk my soul. And so I hate them. They just bug me, and I don't like it. So yeah, it is kind of weird because only you, and I did that in the wrong hole. I need to go in that hole. That hole there. There we go. Actually, let's undo this because that's where it went wrong. You need to be in that hole there. Well, yeah, probably. I was about to say something I shouldn't, so I won't get me fired. Yeah, I won't say that one. But no, go to sleep. Go on, bugger off. Go to sleep. You were tired. I'm sitting here adding bobbins. So Naughty Cat, how are you doing? As you've come alive. Oh, my friend. Why is it we pick stupid hobbies to have, right? And when I mean that in just a general term, not for an OCD reason, but we pick stupid hobbies. I have no patience, so I've picked things like lacework, where you stab tiny holes in a piece of card and spend hours at it, and then you spend hours putting stupid little bobbins and crossing them over in hopefully the right directions, and you're not supposed to tie too many knots, and or I do weaving where there's hundreds of little bits of string, and you've got to lift them all in the right order or it all goes really, really wrong, right? And then of course they break and you swear like a navvy. But why is it, or I do crochet or knitting, or I've done a bit of cross stitch, and I quite enjoyed that, and I must do some more on that actually. The problem I had with the cross stitch pattern that I did as my first effort was not the cross stitch. Yeah, you do one big thing, I do lots of different ones, but they've all got the same problem. They all require patience that I clearly do not have. Especially this. So, what is wrong with us? Why do we all pick a hobby that is really clearly not something we should be doing? It's almost like medically advisable not to do this. So it's the first shit we sign up for. I assume it's partly the human instinct of what you can't have is what you want, No! Really? That's unfortunate. Mind you say that. Oh, I'm not going to be able to show you this easily. No, it's not showing. Hang on. I've got a spot. There it is. You can just see. It doesn't look on camera half as angry as it is in real life. I've got a little spot on my arm, and that's a real freaking angry spot. And it's like, it's going to sound horrible, but if you've got chicken skin, like there's all the little pores in chicken skin where all the feathers would have come out, right? It's almost got that kind of effect to it. It's like, when you have like one of those are you allergic tests and they get like the 5-prong thing and go tunk, right? It's like someone's done that on my arm with a really little one in like a centimetre round. It's perfectly round with like 5 things. There's like, or 6 things, I'd have to count them, hang on. yeah, basically, there's like 7 on the outside, 1 in the middle, so there's 8 in total. And it's literally perfectly circular. Well, I've not been out, so no one stabbed me with nothing, because I'd have fought them off with a stick, because I don't do stabbing things. Because I... but it's weird, because it's literally like I've had one of those tests. But it's on, like... It kind of does. I've never forgotten the day we had our BCGs. Oh, that was so funny. We'd all had the little testy pots things done. And we had like a week later, or whatever it was later, we had to go and have the jab. And in my school, there were 6 classes per year. So 6 lots of about 40 kids turning up to have their shots, right? And the first class, so I can't remember which year it was either 2nd year or 3rd year, doesn't really matter. Anyway, because whatever class you were in the first year, so I was in 1-3, it was just a randomly assigned number, right? So I'd be in 2-3, 3-3, 4-3, 5-3, right? And I was. But obviously, group 1 went first. And we had a pair of twins called Cairns who had the first surname. So Alistair and whatever the other one was called, I don't remember, went to the thing and obviously were first on the list. So they walked past our science lab, which had quite a few windows to the outside world. And we he fell over and it was kind of like, panic! Panic, Mr. Mannering! Yeah. So yeah, we were all like, did he just have his jab? Are we all gonna do that? Lots of people did do the falling over thing, to be fair. Indeed. Sleep well, my friend. Sleep well. Go and do your thing. You should go to sleep. You were tired 2 minutes ago, dude. Yeah, there is some of that. I am the queen of naps, though. I do like a good nap. I foresee naps in my future. In my 4-day holiday. Does make me feel a bit like an American. It's part of the reason I do stuff like this, because there's stuff to fiddle with. While I am not directly ADHD, I do believe that there are. I certainly am close to it. If it is not, it certainly could be a good friend. I'd adopt it, you know, because I hardly. Fair enough. You go do you, Nautical. You be good. For those who don't know, Nautical makes ropey things. Yes, you can. Oh, I'll just know that you hate me. It's fine. I know you hate me. It's okay. But yes, for those who don't know, Naughty Cat makes rapey things. Just lurk, it's fine. Do the lurk thing. Leave it on mute in the background or something. Look back every so often and comment with, what the fuck's that? And then wander off. So, I'm still tying knots. Nasty knots. Well, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Yeah, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. That's for sure. I don't hate them for it. But what I do hate, what I will say is, you don't have to like me, but you just, you should have a decent reason to actually hate me. I just would agree that there's no reason you don't have to like me. I'm cool with that. Which is kind of where I sit when I'm, kind of how I view things at work, is that you don't have to like your co-workers, but they should be professional and they should be capable of their job. If you hate me, that's fine, but you better have a reason. Don't just hate me because I'm female, or I'm, I'm older than you, or I'm in a different position to you, or, or that I'm upholding a rule that I've been made to do, Oh, fair enough. Oh, I know. But, like everything, when you're at work, you don't have to have friends at work. That's not kind of what it's for. It's for getting the work done. You don't have to like any of them. As long as they're good enough at their job, that's fine. As long as they're professional about it. Now, you can dislike people at work. That's not a problem. Usually, you dislike them because you believed that they were there because they were reasonable at their job, and they proved otherwise. And that's fair. That's fair. You've got a reason because, you can cite the fact that, well, I never, this person never seems to do this, and, I'm always having to cover for this, and, that's a perfectly good reason to, well, frankly, not overly like somebody. Because, if you're constantly picking up their stuff and they're paid for it, it can grate, shouldn't have to do other people's shit. That's what they're paid for. My hand hasn't recovered from doing all the pricking the other day. Because, of course, for those who... I use terminology, but those who don't realise, stabbing the holes in here is called pricking. Those be the words for it. Hey, Nautical, I've got to put more varnish on some of these sticks. Because some of the colour's coming off. So I didn't put enough varnish on. I'm going to have to put more varnish on these sticks. Some of these sticks are leaking colour. Not hugely. I mean, it's not, coal pit time, but before we use them for real, what you playing? What you playing? Yeah, I haven't played that one. Can't help you with that one. I'm sure there's a thing on YouTube that will help you with it, because they never, the answer to pretty much everything is there's an answer on YouTube somewhere. But I'm not very good with games, has to be said. What I am good at is memorising answers for games. Oh, really? Fair enough. I don't tend to do Souls likes, to be honest. I don't really know why. There's a number of games that I'm in my head I think I should like, and then somehow never do. And survival games are one of them. The ones where go around, collect loads of wood, make a bat and a box to put your stuff in, and kind of like 3 struts and string a hide over the top kind of thing, and call it your house for a bit, and then upgrade it, and then get stone on the end of your stick, and hatch it at a few things. And I really should be into those games, but you know what? I'm not. Well, it is flooded with them, and the problem is that I'm not against. I will happily spend hours crafting in a game, collecting random tat and making things and clicking buttons. I think the problem I have with so many of those games is because it is all about getting in, crafting, making bigger and better things. I find some of the logic really stupid. So you have to kind of save up to buy a wall made of wood, but you can't make a wall with a hole in it because of a window, because you need to save up to buy for that. But you then, even if you've got that, you can't buy one you can't make a door shaped hole in the wood because you didn't buy that yet. Well, it's still a hole in the wood. You know the principles. I would much rather have a skill tree that was a bit more logical. Power World was a lot of fun. Even I kind of had quite a bit of fun in Power World. There were some silly aspects to it, do not get me wrong. But they did make... I quite like the fact that you had things like the travelling salesman. You had, you had different climates. You had, different jobs for different things. And the problem I had, like so many of these games, was that, you'd set up, lots of cushy beds for them, and you get lots of different food and some water, and had all of that, and, you weren't standing there cracking the whip or anything, and it'd be like, oh, it's too much work for me, I can't possibly. And then kind of like they'd all melt and have mental breakdowns, and you're kind of going, but I'm giving you food and water. I'm giving you shelter. I'm looking after you. I'm tending to you if you're sick. I mean, you ungrateful bag of bones. It's the... I just found that some of them, well, most of them, were really prone to, well, being a bit weak, really. I did build them a frigging spa. That was the bit that annoyed me. I also found, because I haven't played for a little bit, far too many times things would get stuck in stupid places, and it would be, it would then go off and starve and get sick, and because it got stuck on a rock somewhere, and well, I played when it came out, because, well, I was... Oh, cool. Yeah, I did quite like Power World. It was not going to be an EverQuest where I could see myself playing it in 20 years, but I did have lots of fun collecting different Pokemon, pals, and I did have lots of fun doing that, exploring the caves, collecting all the random stuff to make more stuff, to make the random stuff, to make the... I really... That was one of the few survivally kind of games that I really did stick stick to. Everything else, I've loved how it looked. I loved the idea. But kind of like 2 or 3 days later, I'm kind of going, I don't really want to do that now. Whereas Power World, I played for quite a while. It does, and I think, you know, lots of people gave it crap because it was written by a bunch of people that, you know, weren't exactly famous for making things, and their previous incarnation of it, for want of a better word, because much of it was reused of something else, had been a bit of a flop. But yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't care that the landscape was one they used in another game. Well, if you can reuse it and make a better game out of it, bite me. Why not? Why would you spend hours drawing out more world when you've already got one that you can maybe put a few different textures on and call it quits? I mean, I love the environment in Power World. Did I care that it was the same as the other one? No. I didn't play the other one, so I didn't care. And once I'd seen how that it literally was the same, did I care? No. I still had fun. And I mean, it's the same as when people complain, oh, I've seen these assets in other games. Yes, so was it fun? Are these assets enjoyable in their surroundings? The answer to that, yes. Why does it matter? One of the things that we've gone away from over the last bunch of years is less about gameplay and more about how it looks. And that's kind of sad because it should be more about the gameplay. Oh god, don't they just? I mean, I look at some games and go, I've seen that, I think I've got that. Do I care? Not really. Am I enjoying the game? If the answer is yes, I mean, the one thing I would say is if you start noticing really small details that are, that's just copied from so-and-so, you're not engaged in the game enough, because you wouldn't normally have enough time to sit there looking at utter minutiae going, isn't that rock in this? If you've got down to that level, you are bored of the game has failed you at being interesting. Now sure, if you've got some of the bigger things, so you go look at a house and go, that exact house is in this, that's a little bit different because it's quite big. But if you're noticing the really small, you know, like, isn't that icon the same? Who cares? If it's a sword icon, it's going to look like every other fucking sword icon, right? They're going to have a lot of commonality, even if it is not the exact same icon. You know, can we give each other a bit of space? But as someone who writes a few games, you know, nothing that you know, they're all free and they're all shit, so let's not be, you know, overexcited here. But I fiddle around with game making. Exactly, if you've got a decent character model, why would you... Well, when you wanted to, you know, when you want to get on the bus, when you want to drive, get a car, do you insist that they reinvent the wheel every time? Oh no, you can't use wheels someone else invent those. You've got to make your own. No. Well, you use the wheel because it's a frigging sensible answer. So why is it so bad? And the answer is it's not bad. Like you said, it makes a lot of time. If you've had artists spend a lot of time and money, especially if you're making a series of games, you know, we'll pick on Final Fantasy. You know, it is a series of games. If you are making a series of games, you would expect many of the things to be in the next one. Well, because otherwise, well, what's this going to do with the last one? What is this shit? Right? Now, it can be a little frustrating when you see a game, and I can't remember what I was watching. And I'm trying to think of the game I was playing. There was a game, and it wasn't Only Human, but it was a bit like Only Human. Actually, was it Only Human? Might have been Only Human, right? Let's say it was Only Human, right? So you went in, you had to go and kill things, you had to fight off the zombies, because, you know, zombie killing is a real common theme these days. Kill off loads of zombies, collect lots of shit, to achieve a quest or or make some stuff, right? And I was watching another game, and it definitely wasn't one I'd played. And I swear it was the same place. It had the same bus in the road, the same road markings. But as long as the game's fun, I don't care. If you're shooting people, pay attention to who you should be shooting and not whether you think that bus has got the same dent on it as, you know, somebody else's game. It's a bus, dude. It's going to look like a bus. Of course, it's going to look similar. Even if it's not the same bus, it's going to look like a bus, so it will look like a bus, you know. I've all, you know, like you say, there are lots of times when people find things to moan about a game, and it does feel that they're moaning about it because they're moaning about it. They want to be seen to be with the in people moaning about this game, right? And find a life, people. Go and do something else with it. You know, now I'm not saying that some games don't have stuff worth moaning about. Wow, I've got the right number of bobbins left. I haven't lost any. Bargain. That's right, I've got pain in my ear. It really, really hurts. Oh, smarty. Right. But, you know, games, well, like zombies. Well, it did, but it's like a lot of things. Now, so for example, for those who are not aware, there is an initiative trying to make there is a group trying to make an initiative called Stop Killing Games, where, well, no, it's not. I mean, reviews of things are good things, but we don't need 40 different thousand people all saying the same thing, right? So there's an initiative called Stop Killing Games. Now, the principle, well, I have a question, and maybe you can give me your opinion on it. I'm kind of whatever, you know, I don't expect everything I buy to last forever. So if I bought a game in 1995, if it doesn't run on my computer today, I'm really not surprised, right? I mean, I bought Ghostbusters in like 1987 for my Amstrad 6128. How dare I not be able to play it on my PC today, right? No, I'm not that stupid, right? But I do also agree that sometimes you buy a game, and if it is, so let's categorise this. If it is an offline game, such as, say, Civilization, I would like to be able to think that I should be able to pull it up at any point and play it. But if I buy World of Warcraft, because everyone's heard of that, I know it runs on their servers, and I know that should Blizzard give up on it, it won't work no more. Because, well, they'll have turned their servers off. I'm not under the illusion that that will be a thing. It's an online game. Without the online other end, it is not going to work. So, yeah, whatever. Now, we've all seen some games that have started up and you're like, wow, I really like this, and they failed. Don't care. Fair enough. But I have failed to grasp, because there's been some drama. Oh, isn't there always drama? It's the internet. Well, I'm kind of with you, but my question arises. So in the Pirate Software drama that is going around, I have a question, because they've said that it's not, but I almost see Pirate Software's point of view, but I don't necessarily agree with it either. I find myself having a question that no one seems to have answered. So, for the games that are primarily offline, you are buying the game, such as Populous or whatever you bought, right? You want to be able to play it, and should there have been some form of login stroke microtransaction shop available, the premise of, please, if you're going to kill your game off, can you at least leave it so we can still get in it and play? Or, you know, make available so that people can replace those servers so that it is still playable if should we desire. I'm not strongly against that. I think that, you know, if you paid some money, and it's, especially if it's a fairly new game that closes down quickly, because we've had quite a few of those, I can kind of see a point, because if you paid 50, 60 quid for a game, and, you know, kind of like 3 months later, the game's kind of died, and they're switching off the server, you're kind of going, but I paid good money for that, and I was still playing that. I follow that, and I can see a point. Pirates... No, I know all about the pirate software drama. Believe me, I was just trying to limit it to this particular aspect. So, the question I have is that he said that he is against this. That's fine. He can be against this. He said why he's against it. So he's not just sitting there going, I don't agree because I don't agree. He has said why he doesn't agree. Now, we are all free to disagree with him. That's not a problem. But what has puzzled me is that he has said that he's against it because he doesn't feel that it's right to expect companies to maintain a server or keep an online game online long after its feasibility. And to an extent, I can kind of see that. You know, if everyone logged out a WoW today and never was going to play it again, in 10 years' time, you don't really expect Blizzard to spin you up a server because you fancied having a go. So, I kind of get that. But they're then saying that's not what they've said. But when I looked at the stuff that they keep showing, because obviously it's everywhere at the moment, I agree to an extent that it does sound a lot like what they've said, in that they have not said that it doesn't apply to online games, which is what I think he's trying to say, but in maybe not a bad way, in that he's trying to say that you can't expect, for example, WoW to stay online forever. You should, and you know, I think his own words were, you should clarify that so that it's clear. They've come out saying that's not what we've said. I think his point is, well, it kind of is. You haven't said and qualified which aspects you're talking about. But as you say, it's blown up. Well, and I don't think, again, you know, surely discussions are about that. You can say that, you know, I believe the Earth is flat. Here is my reasoning why the Earth is flat. Someone then comes along and goes, well, I disagree that the Earth is flat. We can prove this by this, 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 and this. You either change your opinion, or you shut up, or you go, well, I have proof that Earth is flat because maybe we need to do more about this. Maybe we need to do more proof. Maybe, you know, because obviously, you know, if you put a spirit level in your house, it appears flat. We all know that not everything can be flat because, well, it's round. Well, it's not even round, it's kind of ovally egg-shaped. But anyway, it is certainly not flat. But being wrong doesn't mean that you should receive hate from above. Now, being on the internet, it kind of does, but it shouldn't. And whether he's right or wrong, I do feel a little sorry in the sense that I've seen some of his streams and I've seen some of the comments made against him in that stream, which then, you know, quite immediately get deleted. But Some of the things are absolutely above and beyond ridiculous. Well, and that's the thing. Well, and that's the thing. You can be blatantly wrong. You know, this bobbin is white. Discuss, right? And we can have a conversation about that. Why do you believe it's white? What makes you believe that that's a white? You know, our zebra is black with white stripes or white with black stripes, right? You can have 50,000 hours of conversation on that, just like the does a tree falling in the forest make any sound? You can have a lot of discussion about that too. Now, surely that's the adult way of doing things. And so whether Pirate Software's right or not, whether the initiative do or do not have a flaw in what they're asking, surely if someone sees a potential flaw in what you're asking, while there are flaws, it is less likely to be approved, because they will, you know, someone else might argue, we're never going to approve that because it means this and that's not practical. So by removing all potential loopholes, flaws and identifiable weaknesses in your statement, you're more likely to have success should you have the opportunity. So I don't know. I've yet to understand, because they've said so many times now that it's not about keeping online games running after they're online, and then usually gives the example about setting up private servers and playing offline. So you kind of are. And so I don't understand entirely all of their proposition. Because it doesn't make, you know, they say something and then kind of contradict it 2 minutes later. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's the bit. The problem with an awful lot of big names is I think it's almost a prereq, you know. I mean, look at Elon Musk. You know, hardly known for his common sense and great wonder, you know. I mean, but he's highly successful, so he's really good at whatever he does. At the same time, he could be a bit friggin' out there, you know. He's done some, you know, kind of off the radar activity, you know. So I don't know. It's, as you say, I think there is quite a bit of it where I think healthy discussion by putting up counterpoints, even if they're wrong, it's a bit like there are religious fanatics who welcome the challenge of testing their faith. Because by testing their faith, they prove their faith, if you know what I mean, right? Even if you can't see it, you can prove, you know, they prove their faith by the absence of, you know, other things, right? You know, almost you can prove that something there by the absence of something else. You know, it's, which of course is how they test whether you had diseases or not. No, look, one of my bobbins has lost its knobble. Ding. I shall glue that back on. Are there any other fallen knobbles? I don't think there are, actually. And interestingly, it is one of the bobbins in here. It's not one that I missed earlier. Oh, let me glue this back on. Let me take off the excess glue that was... By the way, you Americans love your hot glue. Shit. What is the point of hot glue? So, the hot glue that I used, I filled the hole at the top and plonked the bead on while it was still hot, and let it cool and left it for a good while to harden, right? So you would think it was stuck. No, it's like wax. It is no better than heating this melting it in the hole and plopping the bead on. It didn't hold it on. You need actual super glue, which is what I've got, obviously, because I'm holding a tub of super glue. Where's the other tub of super glue? Because I opened this one because I couldn't find the other one last time. And I have bought an even bigger spare tub of super glue, because you can never have too much super glue. And this tub of super glue is quite good because it's got a really, really fine nozzle on the end, so you can squeeze out what you need, and then you put the little stick back down the hole of the nozzle to keep it clear, and it seals it up. So unlike most super glues where you use it a couple of times and then you come back to it and it's now one big solid lump of dead, this really does work quite well. Let me put that bobbin over there and let it sit for a couple of seconds. I might faff around with these a little bit. I don't disagree. I will think that picking the earth is flat is... some of them genuinely believe the earth is flat. But like all, let's call it religions, because a religion is only a set of beliefs after all. Like all religions, there is some no's, right? It probably should be, but there are people out there that actually believe it, and I think that's kind of always the problem, is that somewhere there is someone who's gonna take it too far, be an idiot about it, and you know, spoil it for everybody else, right? It's every religion, every belief, every group seems to have them. There is one idiot who will take it too far, too much, and spoil it. But I do, as you say, the principle of challenging it just because I enjoyed 2020. 2020 was one of my best years, to be honest. I absolutely loved 2020. Because I am a bit of a recluse and I don't tend to leave my house very much. Well, COVID enabled me to do that. I always knew working from home would be a great and glorious thing. Well, when the company had to send us home because, well, you know, we're not allowed out of the house, I got to work from home, and still do. And it enabled my hopes and dreams to become real. It was a little awkward for a while when there wasn't any food. That was slightly a bit of a bugger. Not gonna kind of debate that. That was definitely, you know, not kind of how I wanted it to go. But you know, once we got over the whole kind of there is no food, oh my god, let's buy, you know, people were buying, you know, 50,000 toilet rolls and all of this kind of stupidity. You know, to be honest, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The wildlife came out of hiding. Now there are some things that I find slightly weird, which, and even then the knock-on effect I think will also take a while, because there are people with long COVID who are still ill, and obviously we don't know what that does to their lifespan. Chances are, you know, almost certainly reduces it. But over here, don't know what it's like over there, we had quite a few children who obviously weren't in school because schools were shut. Now, as adults, we learn things pretty quick. So it seems kind of weird when you look back on your school life and you work out that actually you didn't really learn a lot when you were at school. But they made a freaking mountain out of it. You know, you'd spend an entire term learning about, you know, which of course is about 6 weeks, learning some really tiny thing that, you know, as an adult you could be told in like 10 minutes. It's kind of like, you know, and kind of go, right, that's it, you know it all now, and you're like, oh, okay. But as a child, there was, you know, 6 weeks of the wretched stuff. So with that in mind, children obviously didn't get, quote, their education in the same level that they should have done. So when it came to the exams, they gave them all better grades for it. But oh, almost certainly, and I can imagine a few of them, but yeah, shouts at tell or whatever. But there was so much that, you know, because we had children growing up without the interaction with others. So, you know, if I'd been a child in 2020, because I was an only child, I would have seen 0 children of my own age. That I would have been stuck with my delightful parents and nothing else. And, well, that's not exactly a healthy thought, right? There are many other children out there for which that is really not a healthy thought. And so, you know, the cost of that and the mental cost on how those kids are going to grow up because they missed out on founding years of socialization is going to be difficult. You know, it's very hard to calculate some of that. I mean, hell's teeth, in some respects, you know, think of anything that goes on. There are so many things that go on in our world that the true costs of it don't come out to years later. I mean, think of all the things that have changed over the decades about how, you know, sort of like, back in the 80s, it was great to do this. Back in the 90s, this was great. But they're not anymore. Well, they were deemed scientifically proven to be awesome for you back then, and suddenly they're not anymore because we've got further knowledge. And, you know, things like Chernobyl, the true outcome of Chernobyl is still not really a calculable outcome because, well, you know, it's not exactly safe now, is it? I mean, obviously the world has had diseases that ravaged the world before. Naughty Cat and I would like to point out the bubonic plague at this point, because we both have a hate of rats as a result. No, but at the same time, the number of people who believe that, you know, Bill Gates or whatever was injecting you with nanotechnology and there are always a lot of weird things that seem to go on, and the problem is some of them really do have a founding in a true statement. Now, it might be a wrong belief of a true statement. So a bit like the pirate software, you know, seems to be taking a view that they're demanding to keep all massive online games online, and how dare you, this is impossible. Well, he is nuts, but at the same time, he's I really doubt he injected me. Well, obviously not him personally, but you know, I really doubt as a result of him, I have been injected with nanobots because, well, they'd be bored off their tits. So, good luck to the nanobots. By the way, I've added all my bobbins now. So, I don't know. I think I'm not disputing that he probably would if he could. I think that's true of a lot of people. There's a lot of things that are true. You know, if they had any opportunity, they would definitely be up for some of that. And not necessarily specifically nanobots into people, but, you know, the kind of will chip you, will track you, will, censor your thoughts, will project ideas in your brains as, oh, there's definitely people who'd be doing some of that because they would want first in on the advertising rights so they made the most money. And it doesn't matter how wacky the idea is. I mean, I almost imagine that, you know, if the aliens landed in England, someone would put a parking ticket on it. You know, if it landed in America, they'd probably shoot it. You know, we are not a great and glorious empire of people to be heralded as examples. Frankly, we're all a bit weird. So yeah, I don't know. It is a difficult thing, and you know, I do wonder, you know, where it's all going to end up. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's put you in a stick and put you out of the way for a minute. No, but as I said, it's not like we haven't had big wiping out bugs before now. Influenza's certainly done many over the years. You know, it's. I mean, we would like to think we're beyond that now, but well done COVID for proving we didn't. Fair enough. I end up talking rubbish all the time. Mainly because it's very difficult, because this is not really... I mean, with all sincerity, this is not exactly the spectator sport of the 2nd century. And to be honest, most people come here for my scintillating... Well, they clearly don't, but most people don't come here for my scintillating, you know, educational commentary, because, well, that doesn't happen, so... I mean, I do kind of find it a bit amusing that I get more people watching me do this than I ever did playing a game. But, well, 4's hardly, like, you know... Fair enough. Well, to be honest, a lot of subjects are if you give them the time and the effort. What, for this? Well, I don't have any patience, so, you know. I definitely don't have patience. Absolutely. Hence... Oh no. No. I've had at least 2 mental breakdowns on stream already, and I mean proper ones. A close one. Now, why aren't you snugging up like I want you to? I think it's because one of you has a knot on you. Let's see if that works. I see something, but I don't see where it is. One of the biggest problems I have with this is that I have wonky eyesight. Now, there's nothing wrong. I can see clearly. Well, sort of. I can see clear enough. That's what would be accurate. Because I really do need some new glasses. But the problem I have is that I can't see. There are two things. If they're identical in colour and they're not big, I can't. Well, you'd be surprised how annoyed I get with these wretched threads because I can't see if they're on top of each other. If they were big and gave a shadow like my fingers, I can see which finger's on top of the other because there is significant shadow. When it comes to two white threads under a bright light, can't see shit. I can't tell whether it's over, under. It could be a frigging bow of it for all I know. And it does drive me slightly wonky. Because, well, I kind of need to know. Especially when I'm trying to undo it because I screwed it up. I need to know whether I got it right or not. Because I need to undo it. And you know, it's a bit like plugging in a USB stick. How can you kind of go 6 different ways and still not manage to find the right one yet, you know? It's very much like a USB stick for me. Although I've had runs of luck with USB sticks recently, which is a bit weird. Oh, yeah. Anything you made in any shape or form, in my eyes, is a craft. It may not be technically labelled craft, as in it's not like leather craft, needle craft, but if you made it, you have crafted it in its true form. Yeah, you are free. The only thing I would say is obviously as long as it's not pornographic or something, that might be a little bit of a stretch. But, you know, anything else, that's cool. As long as you made it, I would consider that crafted. Or if you really want, I'll start up the is it handmade or homemade argument again. Well, that's good, because, you know, that one's a little bit more subjective in life. By the way, how is Katie doing these days? Obviously, I haven't spoken to her for a very long time either, so. Good. Oh no, that's a shame. I mean, obviously, you know, heartbreak and all that, and you know, it's never a great and glorious moment of your life, but you you know, she was still doing strong last time you saw her. That, you know, I'll take that as a good sign. Well, I mean, hell's teeth. My ex-husband has keys to the house, knows the alarm code, knows my bank code, has basically power of control over my dogs down the vet should I be ill. I understand. You know, I'm one of... Well, and that's kind of sometimes how it goes. I mean, while Trev and I, you know, did fall out rather, I won't say spectacularly, but solidly. You know, we were done. And there was touch and go for a couple of months. The truth of the matter is that we're still friends. We're just not going to go there, you know? So when I was in hospital, he lived here while I was in hospital to look after my dogs. What a great friend. It's just because you don't want to be doing rude things, you know, every 10 minutes or whatever, you know, doesn't mean that you can't, that they're not nice people. And I've always found it sad when people realise that something's not going to work and end up, you know, in that kind of can't be within the same time zone as each other because they're going to throw things at each other's state. Because it's kind of like, that's sad, you were friends, you loved each other once. It's a shame you can't be nice to each other at some point. So, you know, with all of that, you know, with those kind of moments, it's always been, you know, it's always made me a bit sad when people can't be at least civil with each other, especially if they've got children. But then, to be fair, usually when they've got children, the children have been used as weapons, and that's what makes them angry. And I don't blame them for that, because I remember one guy going, "You've not been divorced," and I was like, because I'd only just got married at that point, and it was like, "You've not been divorced," you know, you kind of... Let me have a look. Oh my goodness. Dude, you can draw. Dude. With every inch of love, I hate you. I can't draw for shit. Well, not necessarily. Sometimes the most surprising people can do the surprising things. I mean, to be honest, when you met me, I was doing karate, playing computer games. Is lace making something you thought I'd do? Probably not. It's... To be honest, I blame... Oh, it's going to sound really weird. Yeah, you watch the slap I could give you for that. But it is one of the weirdest things is that I put my inability to draw down to effectively the same thing that makes me dyslexic. Now, hear me out. In my head, I know a lot more things than I can put on paper. When I try and get them out in order, they don't come out right. But in my head, they're all right. And I have the same problems with drawing. So I can arguably draw a face. I've done a reasonable face or two in my time. I'm not going to claim good. I'm going to say reasonable. But the moment it comes to shoulders, fuck off. My brain cannot compute a shoulder. It just... Not a hope in hell, right? it just draws a blank. It doesn't know how to start. It always ends up looking absolutely wonky. And I make like a 3-year-old level of finger painting out of it. And even then, there are 3-year-olds that would laugh at my effort, right? And with all of that in mind, it is the sometimes the skill that people can find is now, no one says this shit happens fast. Much like lace making, this does not happen fast. I mean, in 2.5 hours, I've basically added this little chunk, right? Now, admittedly, we've done some talking, but I have mostly been bobbin flicking while I was doing it. It's not officially called bobbin flicking, but whatever. Well, I will be 53 very shortly, and I can assure you, over the course of the years, I have spent and wasted so many hours. Now, if you look at my normal YouTube, not the one associated with this channel, my Liz Kimber channel, there are, and I think actually they might be on this one. I think they're actually on this one. They're on the one associated with this channel. There are some drawings of some mandalas that I did. Now, some of them I am actually proud of. And I honestly mean that. I am actually proud of. But they're almost the ones that everybody else would hate. Which is kind of sad, really. But I do have a picture that I made. I won't say drew, that's a bit stretching it. See, there's some grey ones. You can see that they're grey, because if you compare them to the white ones over there, you can see that some of these threads are very considerably grey. So some of them have not done so well in the whole being on the thing. I definitely need to varnish these bobbins a bit more. But I made, using my graphics tablet, a graphics program, and a lot of cursing and swearing, well, some of mine I look at and they were a bit naff, right? But a couple of them I look at and I'm really proud of. Now, the one that I've got on my wall is not necessarily one I'm proud of for how great it is, but I am proud of what it symbolises. And I made a mandala, and it was a very simple one, but I put 2 tulips kind of on it to represent me and my dad, because I made it just after my dad died. And I then spent a lifetime tracing it on. I printed it out, traced it onto some paper, then went over it with physical ink and pens and the like, so that I could put it on the wall of my house, right? And I have. It's out of all of the things I've got 3 pictures up in this house. One is a picture that someone drew for me. One is the poem of waiting by the door for when your animals have departed. And one is this picture I drew for my dad. Now, is it the greatest picture in the world? No. Did it come out as good as the digital one? No. But did I do it? Yes. I did it for my dad. And it doesn't really represent anything about us as people. But because it was the best thing that I could draw, it was all I could offer, right? Now, in terms of needlework, in terms of lace making, I probably could do a whole world of different things that would arguably be more appropriate. But at the time, that was not what I had. What I had was a graphics tablet, a light box, some paper, and I bought some paints and I did my best. It's not bad. I mean, it's not great. It's never going up in a museum, let's put it that way. But I've seen worse on walls. I mean, a local private hospital that I was in the waiting room of once, I shit you not, had an A4 white, canvas on the wall, and it had bits of string glued on it and red and white blocks inside some of the bits of string. But there were also pencil marks on it. It looked like something you or I could knock up in 10 minutes, and I promise you, it literally had like a line of string, some other bits of string kind of looped like that, glued onto the board, and then they'd painted some of the loops in red and black. It wasn't well painted. I'm sure this thing cost them a fortune, because it's bound to have done. I think it was ugly, right? So the more ugly it is, usually the more expensive it is when it comes to art. This thing really looked like something a 4-year-old child would have done on, finger painting day. We dragged some string through glue, we dumped it on. Well, exactly, right? It looks like you got some string in some copy decks, dunk, 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 PVA glue for those who are not British, dragged it on, wanged it around a little bit like this, dumped it on the canvas, and then kind of blotched that really thick school paint that they used to have, blotch, blotch, blotch in the holes. Exactly what it looked like. I don't care what it was called, I don't care who made it. That, my friend, is the level of art we were all making age 3 or 4 at school, without assistance. It is not art. That is not art. Some of the things that count as art, can't say I agree with you. Yeah. Some of the stuff that's won the Turner Prize over the recent years, shit me. There was one which was the dirty bedroom, basically, strewn clothes over a bed. Pretty much every teenager on this planet has one of those. What makes that up? Then there was the bed of rice, or the pile of bricks. I mean, the half a cow, at least you could argue, could be instructional. Sort of. But at least it was half a cow in formaldehyde, so you could see inside half a cow. And it had been kind of like chainsawed down the middle. And yeah. The pile of rice was pretty close, as was the pile of bricks, to be honest. But as you say, it's not art. It's a fucking banana. I would argue the right photo of this has 1 billion times more art than the pile of rice, the pile of bricks, and your banana, right? Well, because they took thought. Someone actually had to think and get the right angle, Whereas, it's a bit like a pavement pizza. You can't really call it art, It's just not a thing. It might make a statement, but it doesn't make it art, It might say that this kebab shop doesn't cook its food, but that doesn't make it art, Speaking of kebab shops, I am hungry. I wonder what I'm having today. Friday is my traditional takeout day. I reward myself for making it through another week without killing people. Or slapping them. I might have thought of slapping them, but as long as I don't actually do it, I reward myself for successfully surviving another week. And, well, next week's going to be good because, well, for the non-UK amongst you, this does not mean much. But on stream last week, I discovered more places now will deliver me food. And in fact, I was talking to my co-worker about that very subject, about how I discovered it on stream and how that, you know, this is going to be a problem. Because, you know, I've watched the My £600 Lifers and, you know, well, this is the problem. You've already seen where I'm going with this. I've seen My £600 Life. I don't entirely want to be one of those people. But if I tell you that when I looked at my phone earlier, there were 193 places willing to bring me food by just pressing some buttons on my phone and clicking send. Now, that is just generally a bad idea. If I scroll down now, right, if I cover up where I live, 193 places, okay? Now, you know, it is, because obviously my address is at the top, so which is why I covered out. But I can have the usual stuff, so KFC and Pizza Hut and you know, McDonald's and Five Guys, but half this stuff was never on there. So McDonald's have done a big thing in the UK. Oh, you can have this through Uber Eats. We don't normally get Uber Eats. Well, suddenly, I don't know whether Uber Eats and Just Eat have had a baby or something, but they're now shagging, because clearly I now get 193 places that will send food. And to be honest, McDonald's is a problem because, well, I have a bit of a habit that I will do stuff all evening like this. I'll do this, I'll play a game, then realise at midnight I'm hungry. Probably. But well, that was Hungry House. Hungry House and Just Eat, one bought the other, that was for sure. But I have a habit of getting to near midnight and then realising I haven't eaten today, and the fact that I'm starving hungry. And I used to, at my old house, drive down to McDonald's because it was slightly closer. Haven't done any midnight runs since being here, mainly because, well, can't be asked. But now, I can click, send McDonald's. But on top of McDonald's, there are various food stores of greatness, some more great than others, do not get me wrong. My favourite, Wacky Burgers. Now, I think it's a fairly local only shop, but Wacky Burgers do chicken nugget burgers, and this is the likely option for tonight. Well, it was, but now Just Eat are doing it. So I don't know whether they bought them out, as I said, have a child, whatever. Frankly, not caring, but technically I can click bunches on this phone now and a McDonald's will arrive in a bag on my doorstep. I don't care how it gets here. I don't care who brings it. I don't care whose name you're doing it under. I can click buttons and have a McDonald's arrive. Now, there are the usual takeouts that have been offering me food for a while now, and I respect those takeouts, I truly do. But some of the ones that have caught my eye, and will be a problem on Tuesday, Greggs. Now, if you've not heard of Greggs, Greggs is kind of a takeout deli kind of place. But if you've never had a Greggs sausage roll, you have not lived. There is something about Greggs, right? And Greggs deliver. Greggs deliver. Now, my ex-husband works in a place where there is a Greggs on site. And he now has a Greggs habit. Okay? So he, of all people, understand the problem. Well, the problem is they do great lunch and breakfast, but they do breakfast burgers, so they do, you know, sausages, bacon, all that kind of shit in a bun. They do standard burgers and shit, and subs and all that kind of stuff. And of course their infamous sausage roll. And so I think there's more than one Greggs actually that deliver here, which is even more worrying. I think there was about 4 when I counted it. Now there are whole bunches of other places that I've never heard of and have got no real name behind them. So, you know, whatevs. But Costa Coffee will now deliver. More pizza places than you've ever heard of shake a stick at. I mean, seriously, no one in the world needs this many pizza places. More piri piri fucking chicken. I don't dislike piri piri chicken, but I do on the fact that everybody thinks we love it. I don't hate it, but the fact that everyone seems to have piri piri in it just pisses me off. All of the supermarkets are now deliverable. Some of the smaller shops that you really wouldn't imagine, they've obviously got in on it. Dessert shop. I mean, seriously, look at this picture. Look at this picture. Seriously. Toby Carveries, they're really cool. Toby Carveries are fucking awesome. You can have Sunday dinner delivered. Kebab Burger, who are some people I used to order from before I moved. More things. Taco Bell. I've never had Taco Bell. Never in my life had a Taco Bell. I can now have Taco Bell. I may not be missing out, but I can now have Taco Bell. Another Starbucks. Well, I mean, this is the problem. There's a winery, not that I tend to drink, but there's a winery who deliver. At Five Guys. I'm looking at stuff that's, you know, generally a little bit more than the local corner shop shit. Iceland, which is a frozen food store over here. Co-op, which is a big one. More Costas than you can shake a stick at. Another Greggs. Papa John's. Don't know what the fuck that is. A convenience store, so it's a general sure. More burgers. Sainsbury's. I mean, this sounds up my street. Fat Master's Pizzeria. I bet you it's disappointing. Drinks Central, another drinks place. Wok and Tea. What? Sounds a bit weird. High Tea that does basically, it's kind of like those frozen-y, weirdy, drinksy things. Pret a Manger. Morrison's. Another Morrison's. Another Morrison's. Co-ops. We've got Brewdog Burger, where basically there's a load of burgers held to a piece of wood by knives in the picture. Turtle Bay, I don't know quite what that is. Another co-op. Convenience store. Hot Dog King and Waffles. Black and Gold, what do they do? They look like sandwiches. Another Costa. Another burger. Harvester. Dear God, Harvesters. Burritos. Another grill house. Another convenience store. I don't even know what... Oh, that one looks like a gaming store. It's not even food. Richer Sounds. They sell hi-fi equipment, by the way. McDonald's. Another McDonald's. Another KFC. Another Co-ops. Another Greggs. Another Iceland. Subway, who makes sandwiches. Another Costa. Asda. Some random pizza company. Some random thing. Londis, which is another big food company over here. Another Starbucks. Another wine place. Seriously, the amount of food I could order without having to even get off my chair. Pray for my soul, people. But on Tuesday, I am ordering a Greggs. Because I can order from like 6:30 in the morning. Now, I'm not getting up at 6:30 in the morning, but I can order food from Greggs from 6:30 in the morning. So on my birthday, I'm gonna, because I feel the need. I feel that should be done. The problem is I must not get into a habit of it, otherwise I will end up fat. I mean, proper, like, you know, can't get me out the door fat. And we don't need that. Don't need that at all. Mainly because Dr. Now doesn't do the UK, you know? But if you did, there might be some hope for me, but I'm sorry, but it would be like if, I know, not that I know of a place, but if there was a thing called Cheesecake World, if they delivered, I'd be dead in a year. I would live off it every meal. I have a real problem with cheesecake, and I'd... See, I told you were tired. You just didn't listen to me. Well, it has to be said, it's nearly 5 o'clock, and I wish to order some food, because it is that time of day, and I am hungry, and I haven't eaten yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I is hungry. No, I know what you mean. I struggle in afternoons. I hit a wall at about 2:30, and it's like someone's kicked me in the face to knock me out. It's some days it's almost near impossible to keep going through it. I've been a lot better the last couple of weeks, but normally around about 2:30, I sit there and my face is just falling off with tired. That kind of melty face feeling you get, and so yeah, I fully understand. Okay, we sort of have something like that we can do, but it's usually on a stupid day, and they go like, oh, well, for all the money you save on this time, well, you can get money back at that time, or you can just ignore it and just keep using shit. So because the amount of money, you know, you can turn everything off for, you know, 5 hours or whatever, and you might save 3 pence, and it's like, it's going to cost more than that to start it all back up again, so let's not. Anyway, it's been a fun afternoon. Thank you for coming out to see us. I will be back tomorrow, at my usual extra late time, so a bit more American friendly in your evening. It's usually close to midnight my time. I see. Anyway, I'm going to go and order me some food and eat my food and maybe sit in the garden a little bit, because there's a tiny bit of sunshine still in my garden. My garden, basically, she who lives this direction, her garden kind of goes all the way down there, and in this direction are lots of trees, and as a result of a exceptionally tall tree, I don't really get sunshine, because the sun goes from over there to over there, and when it's kind of doing in the last little chunk, which of course is obviously later evening, it's behind all the trees. So there is very little sunshine in my garden, but I could still go and enjoy it. And so yes, I shall sit in my garden. I shall be back late tomorrow, so probably in around about 30 hours time, and we shall be back to do some more. Take care, everybody. Don't do anything I wouldn't, and I shall see you then. Bye bye.